on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 6:36 on O'Connor and Company as our morning extravaganza. Some people might call it a bloodbath.
Yes.
What we do here every morning for 4 hours on O'Connor and Company. And welcome to the bloodbath as we continue our trek through the morning hours, keeping you informed and entertained. It's 7:05. Joe DeGenova will join us. 7:35. Janine Eunice, New Civil Liberties Alliance, on the case involving the Missouri suing the government about social media censorship. 8:05, Mike Litteris from the National Park Service on your cherry blossoms. They're amazing. 8:35, Scott Smith, father out in Loudoun County, will be joining us. I'm Larry O'Connor alongside Julie Godlock.
Good morning.
Good morning. It's it's election season. As you know, the Maryland primary is coming up, and we're making our way through many of the candidates running for office, including the 6th Congressional District in Maryland, which is always a seat that is hotly contested.
That's right.
It's the last, other than Maryland 1, which has been a longtime Republican seat. Maryland 6 was the last Republican seat until Martin O'Malley cynically came in and redrew the line specifically to remove one more Republican from the congressional delegation. Because, you know, Maryland can't have more than one Republican representing them, even though, 35 to 40% of Marylanders are Republicans. But we certainly don't have 35 or 40% representation in Congress. But I'm sure those congressional lines are drawn fairly and squarely. Well, we're looking at a lot of people who are running for that Maryland 6 office, including our next guest, Chris Hyser. He wants to be your Republican nominee, and he joins us now. Thank you for being here, Mr. Hyser.
A pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to this point where you're ready to add Congress to your resume.
Yes. Well, I'm a decorated retired Maryland State Trooper. I received a Medal of Valor. After I served with the Maryland State Police, I went on to serve 7 tours in Iraq and 3 tours in Afghanistan as a military contractor, which inspired me to become a chaplain because of the PTSD and suicide prevention. So now I volunteer at the Veteran Service Center in Frederick, Maryland, and Family Rights for Religious Freedom there in Montgomery County that protests the school board and trying to get the opt-out reinstated. So I saw a need for change. I want to serve the community. I'm in for term limits, so I'm in there for looking for 3 terms, and then I want to change over again and let a new mindset get in there, because that's what we need. We need that changeover. Your
website is chrishyserforcongress.com. If you're looking for information about him, it's chrishyserforcongress.com. I like the fact that instead of, usually there's these candidates always have a tab for issues, right? Not Mr. Hyser, it's action plan.
Yeah.
That's how what he calls it. And you've got fight for law and order, back the blue, fight for school choice and parental rights. And I'm with you on those things. Are those fights at the U.S. Congress level, or are those fights better served at the state level or at the county level?
They need to be initiated at all levels. First off, the federal level, the federal government provides about 9% to school boards. So they're fledging right now to begin with the money. So if we're able to get in there and institute these, initiate these policies, then we can help with the ground fight with the people like Family Rights for Religious Freedom and the other organizations that's fighting, like MoCo, Board of Education. So it's a multi-pronged attack, and it's a multi-pronged approach that we're looking at for the school board. And the Law Enforcement Officers' Bill of Rights was repealed back in 2021 in the state of Maryland, and it's really hurt law enforcement because it's put a lot of the adjudication and the actions into a civilian review board, removing a layer of due process. And at the federal, if we can initiate that at the federal level and have that reinstated, to giving those law enforcement officers that extra level of due process, I think it helps. I mean, the federal government definitely helps on these levels, but it's a multi-pronged attack.
Okay.
You are very active in your community. I'm reading your bio here that you have a master's in divinity and chaplaincy from Bay and Claremont School of Theology in California. But you work as a volunteer chaplain in your community. Tell us about that and how you think the fact that you are on the ground working with what might be your constituents someday will help you as both a candidate and also possibly a congressman.
It helps me understand. I've grown up around this community, born and raised in Gettysburg, and I moved to Frederick back in the 1980s. So I'm in touch with the community. I live with the community. I shop where they do. And now I'm going to these events and going to these different functions, and I'm listening to a constituent, not as a candidate, but as a chaplain, and hearing what their ails are. And it's important to understand the community on that level in order to represent them. When I get into Congress, I'm going to stand beside everybody. I'm not going to stand in front of them and say, this is the way it's going to be because, I was elected. I want to stand beside them, and I want to represent them as a friend and not as an overlord.
And so as people are evaluating which Republican is best, not just to serve them in the 6th Congressional District of Maryland, but also who's best equipped to win this general election, because those are the two questions facing Republican voters choosing their nominee. Who's my best representative? Who can win in November? Make that case to the voters so they know why you're the one.
I am not a career candidate. This is my first run. I love community service. I love working with, as a state trooper, I served the state. Then I went on to serve my country in Iraq and Afghanistan. I want to continue to serve because I see a need for it in this district. I'm not that career candidate that keeps running for office after office, looking for that title to where I get entrenched and then suck off of the taxpayers' money. Like I said, I'm looking for 3 terms to help this district out and then move on. I live in this district. Unlike one of the candidates on the Republican side, lives in District 8. We don't need another David Trone wannabe in this district. We need somebody that's going to live here, who represents us, and who understands the very diverse needs from Montgomery County to Garrett County. So I'm that candidate, and I'm hoping to get that vote on May 14th and move into the general.
Chris Hyser, again, the website is Chris Hyser for Congress.com. That's Hyser with a Y. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for your service, not just in law enforcement, not just in the military, but also as a chaplain. We got a lot of gratitude for all 3 levels of service you've already given our country, and we appreciate it.
A pleasure to serve, and thank you for having me today.
It is 6:43.